So I'm sure after taking an 11-month break of YouTube, people probably want to know where I've been. I have another video explaining my actions and thought processes behind the scenes of this last year. I didn't want to fill this video with that information since it doesn't pertain to the topic at hand, which is how I honestly felt about the new Minecraft dungeons. How are you guys doing? It is Jed. The too long, you're not going to get any ad revenue out of me version of this video is that while this game can give me some really enjoyable moments and just have an overall satisfying way of delivering gameplay, this game was severely disappointing to me. It consists of certain mechanics that really bummed me out while playing the game. But before we get into any of that, let's do a little history lesson on the game. The official announcement of Minecraft Dungeons took place in September of 2018. They released a cinematic of the game, so no actual gameplay was shown at this point, but there was obviously a lot of hype. A new game from Mojang, whatever it is, set in the Minecraft universe. I personally was not aware of the game at this point, but this was met with a few responses. People were excited, obviously, but there were a lot of people simply requesting that all of this new content just be added into the base game. And this I couldn't agree more with. Minecraft is a game that is so painfully simple that I can't possibly sit down and enjoy it without the help of mods. A few months later though, a Hytale trailer came out and that raked in over 50 million views, and leaving fans practically forgetting about Minecraft Dungeons. E3 was big for this game, and we finally got to see some actual gameplay. The E3 reveal is what made me aware of the game, and I was getting pretty excited for it. When I play Minecraft, I try to mod the game to the point of it being a loot-based dungeon crawler, but that comes with plenty of balance issues when you're throwing 20 different types of mods from different mod creators into one server. So this was a dream come true for me. An officially supported loot-based Minecraft dungeon crawler made by Mojang. It's like they could read my mind. I got justifiably hyped. I remember asking my friends on repeat if this is a game that we're gonna get into. But after a few days of hype, I kind of forgot about it. I knew it wasn't coming out for a while, so I just got busy with other games in the meantime. Fast forward almost up to release, and influencer content starts hitting YouTube before launch. I started watching gameplay occasionally, not too often, but after a while of this, I start forming my own opinions based on what I'm seeing, and I came to the conclusion not to buy the game. It looked way too easy, and the looting was pretty disappointing. I didn't even realize that it was released when it was, due to my opinions I had already had on the game. I figured it wasn't worth keeping track of since I didn't think I was going to be buying it. Then one day I get online and my friend informs me that he bought the game and he was asking if any of us were going to get it. He streamed the game on Discord so we can see him play, yada yada. Fast forward a little bit and I'm $20 poorer. Next thing I know, we're both playing it. My first actual experience with this game was solo because I needed to catch up with my friend. If you try playing the game and there's a giant gap between two players, it's not gonna play right. The missions are bound to a certain difficulty, so it's either going to be way too easy for someone or way too hard for someone. So at the beginning, I played solo, and during this time, I was having a lot of fun. Everything that was dropping was new to me, and I was excited to keep beating the hell out of things, seeing what I could get. I won't lie, in the beginning I was a little scared to crank up the difficulty because I was still struggling with the controls on controller at the time. I kept pressing my right trigger to melee attack, so I was just barrel stuffing everything that got near me. I was slightly frustrated with the controls, mainly because I kept shoving my bow up everything's nose, but I'd miss my dodges, accidentally pop my heal, just normal things you do when you pick up a game for the first time. But even with all that, I was still loving it. It was easy like I expected, but it was strangely addictive despite all this. The length of Minecraft Dungeons was utterly pathetic. The amount of missions in Minecraft Dungeons is 9. 9 whole main story missions. Each of these levels will take you anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes your first time going through them. Each level will usually introduce you to a new mechanic or enemy that you likely won't see again until your second playthrough. To be fair though, there are hidden side missions and little hidden rooms within the game, but if you're not actively looking for them or accidentally stumble into them, you likely will not experience this content at all. I certainly haven't, and I'm near level 100. This portion of the game is saddening. I feel like there's so much more they could have done here. So many different types of enemies and mechanics are in the game, and I feel like they used them to create the bare minimum amount of missions and activities, and they ship their product that way. For example, take the spider horde from the first mission. That's a unique encounter when you first encounter it, right? Now take the trap encounters from the desert temple, which is equally as unique. Now slap these two encounters together. Now you have to be extra careful not to get webbed right on a trap. This creates a new dynamic using two already existing parts within the game, and boom, you've created a new encounter for a 10th level that didn't require you to create a new mechanic or new enemy. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel like we actually received the bare minimum we could have possibly received for $20. Once you beat the game for the first time after a few hours tops, you are introduced into another difficulty which increases all missions difficulty and loot reward. It doesn't reset your mission progress, so you can pick a farming spot on this new difficulty, farm until you're strong enough to defeat the final boss again, and you're already on the last difficulty. This process is even shorter than your first playthrough, and it just so happens that if you find a totem of shielding and toss on some cooldown abilities, congrats, you've completely countered the final boss. You cannot take damage. Truth be told, this game is able to be beaten in 1 or 2 play sessions, including the next 2 playthroughs. The loot in this game is actually pretty exciting for the first few hours. You'll be messing up some zombies, then one of them will drop some wolf armor, which is exciting at first. Once you put enough hours into the game, you'll realize that this wolf armor is one out of the 8 pieces of armor in the game. And each of these 8 pieces have one unique counterpart. And all of these will come with the exact same attributes. The only thing that separates them from identical pieces of gear are the enchantments they randomly roll with. And the enchantment system is absolutely awful, but I've saved a different section specifically talking about that. Continuing with loot, this next issue isn't necessarily something you can fix, and it's always been a problem in looting games, but I'll explain this one with an actual example. While I was playing solo, I found a harp crossbow. This is definitely one of the better items in the game just because the amount of projectiles you can shoot at once. I rolled Radiance on it, which gives you a 20% chance to heal you and nearby allies when an arrow hits something. This thing shot 5 projectiles, which means I was averaging a 100% chance to heal myself and allies when I shot the bow. I felt so strong and I loved this bow. However, there is a gear score in this game, or power as it's called, constantly demands you put on a higher power weapon even if it's weaker. How it works is the loot that is dropped to you depends on the overall average of your power. I found plenty of bows with higher power than my harp crossbow, but they were nowhere near as strong as it actually was. I stuck with my harp crossbow because it was good, but at the cost of progression. I almost immediately found a higher power bow, which instantly made my really strong harp crossbow a nuisance to use. Thankfully, there is a workaround to this that I didn't know at the time. If you load into a mission wearing your best gear, the drops will be scaled to that gear, even if you take it off and use your preferred gear afterwards. It's an annoying workaround, but it does work. Overall, my issue is constantly scrapping gear that I want to play with just because some piece of gear I don't want to play with has one little extra number on it. Alright, this part of the game needed its own portion because it's single-handedly the worst part of the game, the enchantment system. So earlier I mentioned how the only distinguishing part of gear is the enchantments it randomly receives. Well, if you want to enchant a piece of gear, you need to use enchantment points. How do you get enchantment points? By leveling up. I find this difficult to explain, so allow me to explain this with a video example. Alright, I'm here in the camp and I want to show you guys what I mean by the enchantment system is really bad. So let's just say I'm at the blacksmith, I want to get a piece of gear. Boom, I just got this bow. Just looking at it, yeah, it's not a very good bow, but let's just say I wanted to test something out on this bow. Like I said, the only thing that is going to separate this bow from other bows just like it are the enchantments that it gets. These down here. Now, the only way to get these enchantments is to use these points right here that I only have 2 of right now. Purchase it, and then, damn, I can't upgrade this anymore because I have spent 92 points throughout all these pieces of gear. Now, assume that I want everything that's enchanted here. I obviously don't want this. I'm going to use this bow as an example. But let's just say if it was rolled crazy and it was some crazy bow and I just wanted to keep it, didn't want to get rid of it. I farmed a long time. If I wanted to try this bow out, I have 2 options. I can go and level up however many times it's going to take to get this bow maxed out and then test it, figure out if it's a good bow at all. That's probably like half an hour to an hour of just grinding XP, nothing else, just to test this bow. Or I can go over here and just scrap this bow that I want and get my enchantments back to actually test it out and see how it is. That is a different approach. So if I wanted to test something, I either have to go out and farm my ass off just to test it, or I could scrap a piece of gear that I actually want just to test it out. And even then, it might not have even been as good as the piece of gear I just scrapped. So having enchantment points tied directly to level makes it so you can only have so much gear that you actually care about and have enchanted at once. And the amount of time that you are going to have to spend to have a full inventory of gear that is fully enchanted and is good and is ready to be used at any time, it's going to take hundreds and hundreds of hours. And let's say that I do want to keep this bow. Let's say I test it and I like it. I wanted to keep it. If another bow comes along and I want to test that other bow, I'm going to have to scrap this one to try the other one out, or scrap another piece of gear that I want. And I've completely beaten the game and then farmed a bunch, and I'm only level 93. I can only have a few pieces of gear that I can keep and like. It would probably take me over 1,000 hours if I just wanted a full inventory here of usable, fully enchanted god roll gear. And I think that grind right there is absolutely absurd. I hate the idea that I have to grind so long just for another piece of gear to be fully maxed out, or I can just toss a piece of gear that I want in the trash just to test it immediately. And with games like this where you're constantly getting loot, you want to test out new things, you want to experiment, you want to get as strong as you possibly can. So you're constantly trying to test stuff and see what's good. And in order to do that, you just have to toss out gear that you want. That was a real example of how this system could be problematic. I think this could be fixed by allowing the retrieval of these points from gear that you don't want to necessarily scrap, but are fine with not using them in that moment, just so you can try out a new piece. In the same way that you can assign points to pieces of gear, you can take them back and put them on other pieces of gear that you want to try out. That's just a small little suggestion though. The second half of this segment is the endgame, and I threw it in this section because this is practically all endgame is. Once you've reached the endgame, you can solo all of the content in the game with ease. You're just searching for the best gear possible with the best rolls possible, constantly scrapping old useful gear in pursuit of new useful gear. There's no raid bosses, there's no team activities, there's no randomly generated online dungeons that you can queue up for and show off your gear to similar players. You are just running the same story missions over and over, trying to get uniques to drop with the correct rolls. There was something in the game, however, that got me really excited. The runes. In each of the 9 missions, there are 9 runes hidden. If you manage to find all of these, you unlock a secret mission with a massive boss at the end. Well, there goes my hopes of enjoying this game any further. Hopefully in the paid expansion, yes, you heard me right, paid expansion, they'll touch up on these issues I mentioned. Love y'all. It's good to be back. Thanks for watching. Peace out, everybody.